For our first lesson in the decimals unit, we'll be talking about adding and subtracting. Let's just remind ourselves about something that's important when we add and subtract, okay? So take these two whole numbers here, 324 minus 45. When we write this, we line it up all the way at the right edge. And then we can go ahead and we can borrow. 14 minus 5 is 9. Borrow again. So we get 11 minus 4, which is 7, and then the 2. Okay? And then if we were to do this one, we would do 1,551 plus 207. And again, we're lining it up at that right edge for some reason. 1 and 7 is 8. 5 and 0 is 5. 5 and 2 is 7. And then just the 1. What is the reason for lining it up that way? Well, if you look, technically, there's an invisible decimal point at the end here. We don't write it because there aren't any digits after the decimal point. So to add and subtract decimals, you want to line up the decimal point. Sometimes it's invisible and you have to find where it is using place value. So the place values have to be lined up, and the decimal point is the easiest way to make sure that you do that correctly. Okay? Once you line it up, you might see that you have blank spaces and you need a placeholder. Those are just zeros. Okay, and then you can add or subtract. You might have to borrow or regroup. Okay, so watch. So for our first example, 137 and 4/10 minus 64. So if I write the 137 and 4/10, I see the decimal point, but I don't see it on the 64. That's because it's invisible written at the end. If you have a whole number, the decimal point is just at the end. So then we line it up here. And there's nothing in this tenths place, so we're just going to throw in a 0. Go ahead and subtract. 4. 7 minus 4 is 3. And then 13 minus 6 is going to be 7. And because we lined up our decimal points, we can just drag it straight down. Okay? All right, now this next one, we moved the decimal points, but the digits are the same. So 1, 3, 7, 4. But now the decimal point is between the 3 and the 7 and the 6 and the 4. So I'm going to line it up with the 6.4 lined up with the decimal point. There's a blank spot, so I'm going to put a 0, 4, 3, 7. Same as last time, but now the decimal point is in a new place. So it's very important that we get this decimal point where it goes. Last one. 1, 3, 7, 4, but the decimal point is between the 1 and the 3. Minus 64 hundredths. So I can't do this because the decimal point is here. That's not lined up. So we got to scooch it over. It needs to be 0 point, so they're lined up, 6, 4. If you have a blank space, put in a placeholder 0. Same subtraction as before. 4, 3, and then 13 minus 6 is going to be 7. If you need to see that, this would be how you'd borrow for that. Okay, but now the decimal point is in front of the 7, and we can throw a 0 out front so that it doesn't look funny. So see how important those decimal points are? All right, here's a word problem. Okay, remember we're going to use our annotating, like circling and underlining, and then we're going to use the graphic organizer as well. So here it is. The City Garden Club wants to put a small fence around the new community garden. The length of the garden is 12.2 yards, and the width is 8.86 yards. How many yards of fencing will be needed to go around the perimeter of the garden? So circling the numbers, they're both in yards, so I'm going to underline that. And then I see that this 12.2 or 12 and 2/10 is the length, and the 8 and 86 hundredths is the width. So I'm going to fill that in my what I know. The length, 12.2 yards. The width, 8.86 yards. Now, in this last sentence where my question is, I also saw the keyword perimeter. And I remember that the word perimeter means to add all the sides. So I'm just going to put a note here. P for perimeter, add all sides. And what we are looking for is the perimeter. So in the what I need to know box from the question, perimeter of garden. okay? This sounds like a geometry question to me, so I'm going to draw a quick little sketch of a rectangle, and then my tablet's going to magically make it look like a nice rectangle, okay? Now, we've got the length as 12.2 and the width as 8.86. Remember with rectangles, it's going to match across and then up and down, so the opposite sides are equal. So I'm just going to fill that all in. And now I should be able to find all the sides added together. Okay, so I'm going to add these opposite sides, and then I'll do a final sum to get the total of all the sides. So 12.2 plus 12.2 is going to be 2 and 2 is 4, 2 and 2 is 4, 1 and 1 is 2. Don't forget your decimal point. Just bring it straight down. Okay, now 8.86 plus 8.86. So now we got all four sides. 6 and 6 is 12, carry the 1. 8 and 8 is 16, plus the extra 1 is 17. And then again, 17. Drop down that decimal point. Okay, we need the total of all of this. So now I'm going to write 17 and 72 hundredths plus 24.4. What I just wrote is wrong because the decimals aren't lined up. So make sure the decimal points are lined up. So it has to be 24.4 with a blank space so we can fill in a 0. Okay? 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 and 4 is 11, carry the 1. 11, 12, carry the 1, and then 4. Don't forget to bring down your decimal point. So our final answer is 42 and 12 hundredths yards. And that's the distance around the garden, the perimeter. Okay, and last up, just a quick reflection question. How does the main rule of addition apply to adding and subtracting decimals?